Penny. It's over a decade ago, and she had actually invited a few young adult guys over and talked about real estate. And it was kind of ironic because the very first time that group of guys actually went to go look at a place to rent, and we were debating about it. We met with Penny. She's talking about real estate. I'm like, I am not going to rent. I am going to buy real estate. And I don't know if you knew that, but you had a huge impact for myself as well as those other people. I know that you continuously have an impact on people. You started in real estate when you were 18 years old. You have, I don't want to say how many years of experience unless you want to.
I'm getting my 45-year award yesterday. I actually got it.
Congratulations. Over 45 rental properties. You have a place in Kauai. So lots of great knowledge from Penny. So really lean in, gather up as much as you can, and welcome Penny.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. I flew 28 hours to make sure I was here on time. I was like, oh, wow, that's a really long flight, but I really wanted to be here in person this time to see everybody, so thanks for attending. So, has anybody here ever wished they could be a time traveler? Like, so seriously, wouldn't that be just great? So I was thinking about that, and has anybody seen the show The Way Home or Back to the Future? Yeah. Right? So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking that when you're looking at a property or you're thinking about a business or something, I want you to think of this acronym. We've all heard of ChatGPT, right? Everybody's heard of that? So, but for me, it is come, hear, and travel. Like, I want you to come here in your brain and travel into the future. And then GPT, what is the greatest potential transformation that could happen from whatever it is you're looking at? So I've always said to my kids, see what no one else sees. So back when Bryce was 13 years old, I got this great listing. And I had an appointment to show it to these people, and they were a bit of a unicorn expectation. They wanted 3 things. They wanted it to be within 15 minutes of Red Deer. That's already hard to find. Number 2, had to be treed. I don't know if you look around Red Deer, there's not exactly a lot of treed acreages within 15 minutes. And number 3, you'll love this part, had to be under 300,000. Okay, well that was back in the day when you could actually find something for under 300,000. But I had it. So we had the appointment, and we were homeschooling the kids, and we were at our weekly event where we would hang out with friends and talk to them. And when I got the call, she says, yeah, we want to cancel. And I'm thinking, these people just clean their house. You know, anybody who's had their house for sale knows that, you clean your house. What do you mean they're not coming? I wasn't making that phone call. This was my first viewing. So I said, hey, we should go. It was on our way home. You know, this wouldn't be a big deal. And Darlene, my now wife, said, no, I know what's going to happen here. We're going to end up buying that thing. We're going to have to move. And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. No, it wasn't so fine. So we went. We headed over there. And shortly after we get there, Bryce and I are walking over. We walk over and we're looking at the place. And so it was on the highway. So the guy had canceled because he said the wiring was old. Well, yeah, it's an older house. It's got trees. It's been 15 minutes of Red Deer. It has to be older for under 300,000. Nope, the wiring's old. So I'm thinking, all right, so you're looking at one thing. Bryce is standing out on the edge of Red Deer where you could see the city limits. You're standing at the property, Woody's RVs across the highway. And Bryce is like, because I said, you know, this thing's going to go up $1 million in my head. I was thinking that. I sold that to the client. I hadn't said anything to Bryce, and Bryce is like, Mom, the city limits are right there. You could just about throw a stick to it. He said, this is going to go up $1 million. So I'm thinking, here's a 13-year-old who can see the future potential, because I'd been saying to him, when they're homeschooled, it's kind of like brainwashing. I did a really great job of brainwashing him. Started teaching about real estate at 13, so he was really clever. So yeah, so he could see what no one else could see. The other people were looking at the wiring, and Bryce was looking at the future. So fast forward, it did actually go up over $1 million. Another fun fact, you know, it's like, oh, it's too close to the highway. Well, the highway had to expand. Oh, that's a shame. Did you need to buy some land from me? Yes, you did. So they ended up buying this little sliver of land, and they paid me almost the exact same amount of money that I'd paid for the entire property. Also, it appraised, actually at one point appraised at $1.6 million. I paid like $250 for it. So I refinanced a bunch of money out of there. So far out of that property, which I still own, I have made over 300% return. So when you're looking at things, you have to look and see the potential. You've all heard of buy and hold, correct? So how many here have heard of buy and fold? All right, ones have been watching the videos, good job, boys. Another example of how buy and fold is, I'll explain that in a minute. I bought another acreage in the town of Lacombe. So it was 1.39 acres that adjoined a slough. It's kind of scruffy at the time. When I went to write my offer, there were literally an entire street full of realtors in their cars. You know, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and you had to present your own offers. And all I was thinking is, I feel so bad for them because they're not going to win. Because I had figured out every time, for us, for our clients, how to win a bidding war. Because you can't actually pay too much money if you can see the future potential. It's like, because a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, this would be nice. I could live inside Lacombe. Not me. I was thinking, wow, this thing's going to be awesome. So what I did is let's see if we can, spacebar. We actually decided that we were going to try and figure out what to do with this property. So we bought it, we rented it out, but we created a futuristic plan of what we thought could be there. So I hired a guy, Vlad. Vlad is just magic. So there was a lake. The lake does not look quite like that, but isn't that pretty? So what it was is created this idea of what could be there. So I did up these plans, and actually, you see the green part right next to it? That's my neighbor's land. So I went to him and I decided, hey, we should joint partnership and do this. And he's like, well, I don't know. Well, he turned out to be my buyer. So what I did is I bought the land. We did all these fancy little graphics and drawings. He actually did one where you could actually see the sun. Like you could see when the sun's coming in, you could create a video. You could create a video that would have on the TV screen a playing movie. So these are all the things that he could do. I took this to a guy at a bank, and he was just blown away. And the longer we talked to him, the cheaper the interest rate got. He's like, oh, well, this is great. And 1/4% would disappear, another 1/4% would disappear. So men are visual. Right, boys? You know, so if you present things in picture form, really for anyone, but especially for men, that's the way their brains work. It's kind of the way my brain works too. I like to see the big picture. So fast forward, it is now the city of Lacombe. So it had changed from a town to a city during the time I owned it. Also, the slough actually turned into a lake. Like they actually made it better. The town of Lacombe had put through pathways, picnic grounds. So when I went to sell it, my neighbor, he wanted this land, right? And he wanted the vision. So he ended up buying it, and we got an exponential return on that one. So buy and fold. So you take something, say a piece of dirt. All right, so you take that piece of dirt. What am I going to do with that dirt? What are my possibilities? I don't know. So you buy it and you fold it. You convert it, you upgrade it, you change the zoning, you do something, you make it bigger and better. All right, whether that's an apartment building, whether that's changing the zoning, whatever that is. So that's buy and fold. You make it bigger and better. So I bought this piece of land in Innisfail. Again, like you just have to imagine, I bought it on the edge of Red Deer, bought one in Lacombe. This was on the edge of Innisfail. I still have it. Isn't it pretty? So it's just grass. There's deer. You know, the town of Innisfail is at the top here. So I joined again with my partner next door, and we actually created a subdivision. So this subdivision even has a lake in it. I mean, like, who doesn't like a lake, right? So we actually went to the point of getting it approved at the town of Innisfail. It didn't end up going together because the market had kind of took a dive like that. But you can see with the work that we did and the vision that we did, somebody would come along later and they could do it. So I'm pretty sure, hoping I'll make some money on that one as well. So don't look at what's there. Don't look at the grass and the deer. Look at, oh, I could do that. I could put in a lake. I could do all those kinds of things. Look for something that doesn't currently exist. So anybody remember COVID? You probably don't remember it. You're too young. So during COVID, I had a builder reach out to me and they're like, hey Penny, we want you to help us market our houses. We want to build a show home. I'm like, you want to build a show home? It's COVID. No one's going to come. What are we going to have them one at a time, masking, social distancing? That's not going to work. So I said, hey, why don't I build you a show home? They looked a little puzzled. They said, I'm going to build you a virtual show home. So I don't have the app right now, but basically I hired this guy, same Vlad. Vlad, I love Vlad. We moved back to the Ukraine, like that. So he created this virtual show home so that when you went in, you could literally walk around. He created it on a video game platform. So you could go in, you could look up, you could look down, you could go through the walls. I mean, you know, who doesn't like that? So there was 3 things that were great about it. Number 1, lowered the expense. You know how much a stick-built thing would have been? Over $850,000 for him to build this show home that I could just build. Didn't have to worry about it. Number 2, contactless delivery. It's just you and your phone or you and your computer at home playing in the house. You know, you could text in any changes you want. You want a different paint color. You don't want the beams in there. I like the beams. So I built this thing. If I could put everything I wanted in this show home, this is what it would look like. So this is what I came up with. So they actually did an article, one of the real estate magazines picked it up, and it went all across Canada about this. There was actually another company in Ontario that did a similar thing. They pre-sold their entire complex without ever putting a shovel in the ground by using virtual show homes. There was a guy in Hawaii. He kind of went back in time. What I mean by that is, so back in the days, like years ago, the market was slow in Hawaii. Can you imagine that? Slow in Hawaii. And things weren't selling, so somebody came up with the great idea of timeshares, right? So it was easier to sell 52 little things than it was to sell one big unit. So this guy had a great idea. He looked at a complex. It's called Banyan Harbor. Actually took the kids there all the time. So Banyan Harbor was right across the street from the beach. Great location. They're not really expensive. A lot of the timeshares had been turned back in. So what this guy did is he said, oh, tell you what, I'm going to start trying to collect things over in the 2 building. So what he did is he went, and it was like, say it's in the back, in the trees. No one really wants to be in the 2 building. They want to be in the 8 building. They want to be in the one where you can see the ocean. You know, that's a better building. So he bought up all these timeshares. You could actually go to auctions and buy them for like $100. So he bought them, and then he's like, hey, you want to trade? Here, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the crappy, give me your crappy one, and I'll give you this lovely ocean view one. So people were like, oh, this is great. This is wonderful. So they did. They actually sold them to him. So he swapped, probably $500 a piece to swap out the title. So he didn't have to pay much for them at first. Then later, people were catching on to what he was doing. So the last guys, they charged a little bit more. Maybe they wanted $10,000. I don't know what exactly he paid for it, but he ended up accumulating. So get this, so about 52 shares, maybe $100,000. All right, so he takes those 52 shares, he collapses the timeshare. Now it's back in the future, back in the past, where it's just a whole unit. Now he can sell that whole unit, right? Puts it on the market. Get this, paid $100,000. What do you think he sold it for? 6. Probably would sell closer to that now. $400,000. So he made $300,000 by thinking outside the box. So I've just spent the last 2 years trying to buy a town. You know, houses are kind of small. Apartment buildings, really, haven't we done that? It was 92 acres, 400,000 square feet of buildings, and I wanted to convert it all into a green city. It would be industrial chic, it would be really cool. I had all sorts of ideas. I can't even tell you how much time I spent on it. I wasn't able to purchase it, so I've decided that sometimes when I travel into the future, I go a bit too far. I go too far and the world's not ready for where I landed. So just remember this when you're looking at properties and businesses. Don't look at what's there. Everybody sees that. You know, look at what could be there. Like really, travel into the future. So remember, Chat GPT. Come here and travel. What is the greatest possible transformation that could happen with whatever it is that you're looking at? So thank you, and I'll see you in the future.
Thank you very much, Penny. I don't know about you, but for me, my big takeaway from that was it's okay to dream. Sometimes we limit ourselves, and we just have to have free range of maybe one day I'm going to build an entire city. I believe Penny probably will build a city one day. Our next speaker, I actually got the opportunity to meet him at last month's event. Him and I connected, and then we went for coffee and just continued the conversations from there. And so I think that's the potential that's here, is the networking capability. Yes, it's great to learn information, but really take time to network with one another and build up those relationships, because that's so important. And so Brian Squires has been doing real estate development and rezoning for the past 30 years. He built and managed 2 30-unit student residencies. He's converted land into being able to build 400 doors. He's rezoned multiple properties and has been able to successfully sell each one of those. And he has 25 plus years of experience with city planning. So give it up for Brian.
How much per hour? You'll have to excuse me. I'm new at this. This is my first gig at speaking. So, anyways, okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Bryce for inviting me down and speaking about being a developer and what it takes to be a developer. So I must say that there are so many developers out there today that could add a tremendous amount of information to this topic. But to be honest, most of them are extremely tight-lipped about what they're doing. And the aspirations of their future plans, they're individual to them. They keep a lot of their plans and ideas to themselves, because once it gets out there to the marketplace, then it causes undue concerns and worries sometimes. So it's just, most developers will not come out and talk to you. Let's just say that. Developers are people who make good stories for movie plots. So every time you watch a TV or a movie, it's always about the developer wanting to get some kind of a land and a murder is created and so on and so forth. So developers are famous for being, notoriously bad with land developments. They are people who can add value to your house. So if you have a house and a developer is next door, I've had all kinds of issues about, my God, we're not going to do this, or we don't want to do this, or we don't want to put a fence up here, or we don't want to put a fence up there. In the end, we usually end up putting up the fence, we do this, and my God, their property that was $100,000 now is $150,000 because of the new development that went in. Yet we paid a big price to make that happen, to try and make them happy, but we did it. Developers are people who are willing to take that extra effort at all costs. So they'll do whatever it takes to see their visions come to reality. That part I can't explain. It's either in you or it's not. Connor McDavid is a hockey player. It's either in you or it's not in you. You either go or you don't go. That's just the way it is about being a developers. I can't explain it. They will take the extra mile every time, and if they're like me, they put everything on the line. They do put a lot of risk in it. Usually there's a lot of risk involved. There are people with ordinary jobs, which is what I'm going to try and say here. But they have extraordinary ability to see things in the real estate world that most people miss. So these guys that you see driving down the streets in these trucks and tradespeople and so on and so forth, you think that they're heading towards a job. The guy's that's a developer, he's heading towards a job, but he's taking in everything on the way to the job. He's looking at the job. He's looking at how that job got into the ground, why it got it. He's looking at everything. That's what the developers are doing. They see opportunity. So where everybody else is saying, like I've seen it said to me so many times, this is an old wreck of a house. Why would you ever want to buy that old wreck of a house? Well, now a developer can see through that old wreck of a house. And that's the key to doing what it is that I'm talking about. And then there are guys like Donald Trump. I don't know what to say about Donald Trump. There's guys like Donald Trump. So my name is Brian Squires. I was invited here to speak to you about what it takes to be a developer. As you can see, I'm just like anyone else on a daily basis, a tradesman, an entrepreneur, a father, and a son. So thank you again for the ability to come and speak. So you may be wondering about my attire. Bryce asked me to be honest and open about what it takes to be a developer. So I took him to heart. Well, it took thousands of service calls, it took hundreds of lights, and it took millions of plugs to be installed. I'm not talking hundreds, I'm talking millions of these receptacles and plugs and lights and so on and so forth. I started out as an electrician, but I was always that fledgling developer. But in order to get to be a developer, you have to earn the money to get to be that developer. Everything costs money, obviously. The problem was it takes money to be a developer, and in my case, hundreds of hours on the job to working to earn that extra money. I just wanted to point out that anyone who has a dream to change the real estate landscape can be a developer. There's nothing stopping you. It doesn't matter whether you're an electrician like myself, a plumber, carpenter, nurse, doctor, teacher, or historian. Anyone who has a desire to do something bigger than themselves, they will do it. If it's in you, you're going to do it. That's all I can say about being a developer. I say just step out of your comfort zone and go for it. So a lot of people that don't get to be these developers, or the people that do it, they're in a comfort zone. They have this house, they go to work, they have their job, they come home, they pay for their car, they pay for their groceries, they look after the kids, they go to hockey. And as soon as they see something that they really, really want to do, it's now out of their comfort zone. Are they going to do it or not? Because the impact of the risk could be, there's a high on your family, if something goes wrong. So that's the risk of doing it. I always used to say to my kids, they can never fail unless they quit. So if you want to do something, don't ever let anybody tell you that you're going to fail, because you'll never fail. The only way you'll fail is if you quit. And most developers I know, they don't quit. They just keep punching along. That's all I can tell you about that.
So really appreciate being here. Shout out to ATB. When I went to go open up a campaign account, I bank with the one across the street, the red and yellow one. And I saw them like, okay, I've banked here for 20 years. I'd like to open a separate bank account because them's the rules. And they said, oh, well, you'll have to come back and we'll make you an appointment in 2 weeks. Nope. So, you could try online. So I go home and try to do it online. And I can do online stuff, couldn't figure out CIBC's thing. And then I went to ATB's and it was done in 5 minutes. And it was open an hour later. It's like, okay, when this is done, I'll have to figure out rearranging my whole bank account, all my stuff. So one of the things I want to talk about, talking about potential tonight, that I believe that Red Deer has the potential to be the most strategically important city in Western Canada. Yeah. So, but the people that live here, we know that it's special. And you know that it's a special place to live. But so much of what we're doing is stuck in the status quo. But there's a bunch of things that have happened all around us that should make this place just become incredible. So RDP, formerly Red Deer College, now the Polytechnic, they have a new Center for Innovation Manufacturing, just got some serious money from a philanthropic donor and from the province, that they have incredible 3D printers, and they're going to have healthcare technology, and this should be just an incredible entrepreneur incubator so that people can manufacture their ideas here and sending it to China and getting it lost, and to help those businesses. And Red Deer really should be an incredible place for entrepreneurs to pilot their businesses, to figure it out, to grow the businesses. This is an incredible test market for Alberta. But yet, somehow it's not. And our airport, so the Red Deer Regional Airport, getting some improvements. They're doing a new terminal there. They extended the runway. I think they almost had Swoop sign a deal with them, then Swoop went belly up. And apparently airlines are hard to run. I know nothing about that. But so they're trying to get a low-cost airline so people, because it's actually $1,800 to land a plane in Red Deer and $5,000 to land it in Calgary. Wow. So you can see how those savings, people would be willing to drive to Red Deer from Calgary, that'd be a nice change, to fly way cheaper to Mexico. If you think if you have a family of 4 or 7, like mine, I'm not going to Mexico with 7 kids. 5 kids, 7 of us. I can do this. And then one of the other things that I've had some personal stake in working on is that Central Alberta Economic Partnership is working on a feasibility study for a highway. If you go straight west of here, you go to Rocky, and you hit Saskatchewan River Crossing, and the highway tees. So they're actually looking at the feasibility of building a highway going straight there to connect all the way through the mountains. There's a mountain pass, used to be called Howes Pass, connecting past Golden. So if they could possibly do this, build a super highway there, and then we can, just convince the environmentalists that, it really would be bad for all those semis to go through Banff and Calgary. And so we should just make sure all of the traffic from the Port of Vancouver comes right through Red Deer. So then suddenly, Red Deer becomes the hub for all of Western Canada, the gateway to the rest of Western Canada from the Port of Vancouver. And if high-speed rail ever becomes a thing, Red Deer becomes the crosshairs of all of Alberta. That this could be the most strategically important city in Western Canada. Talking about potential of properties, potential of cities. That's what That's what I'm talking about. That's what the vision that we need for this city. But the challenge is, Red Deer is actually stagnant as a city. We haven't seen population growth in about a decade. And last year, Sylvan Lake built more single-family detached homes than Red Deer did. That's embarrassing, by the way. So we need to fix that. And right now, our council talks about how there's a housing crisis and there's an affordability crisis. But I hate it when they say crisis, and it doesn't have a crisis response. If something's actually a crisis, you need to do something about it. So we need to find a way to get more houses. So right now, the federal government is handing out housing accelerator grants because, housing is a problem all across Canada. And so you look at the problem, the cities in Alberta that got it, Airdrie got it, Sylvan Lake got it. Oh, they're actually pouring gas on the fire where people are actually building houses. So right now, Airdrie is pacing to be the third largest city in Alberta by 2030, which is embarrassing. We can't let this happen. It's unacceptable. First it was Lethbridge saying they were better than us. Now Airdrie. It's not even a real place. Not on my watch. So, but somehow, the way we have the process set up at City Hall, and many of you are real estate investors, and so you'll know the zoning nuances and nastiness better than I will. But the last best example of how this process just doesn't work anymore is the Red Deer Resort and Casino wanted to tear down the 2 bars beside it and build the event center. So go through the process, go through the Municipal Planning Commission, and the Municipal Planning Commission said no. You're 16 parking spots short. It might have been 18, I can't remember the details. But, so we could have a new building instead of those crummy old bars I actually never went to. And so they said no, and the owners of the hotel actually took them to court to get it overturned because it was so dumb. Got it overturned. It actually opens this week, that's the biggest private sector investment we've seen in Red Deer in the last 2 years, the redevelopment of the resort and casino, which is good, but we need to do better than that. If we actually have a housing crisis, we need to work on this. And so gentle density is sort of the framework that they're talking about now, and they're going through a long, complicated process of the land use bylaw, and it looks like they're going to allow more of that, and it actually makes sense from an investor side and from a housing side and also from a city fiscal long-term problems because roads and pipes and power lines, those all cost money, and they're all going to need to be replaced in 50 years or whatever. And so long-term liability, it's better to build denser, gentle density, let people do it. So certainly want to have more conversation with you, how the city could do better on those things. So my plan and a lot of what I'm talking about as I'm at the doors and talking to people is we need to find ways to grow the city because city property taxes are going up. I mean, my life has gotten more expensive in the last 2 years. I'm sure yours has too. And so this year, property taxes are going up 6%, and next year they're pacing to go up 10%. And the city has burned all of their operating reserve, so they have even less wiggle room. So we need to find ways to grow the city, whatever we can do. I'd like the city to do a full review of including with industry, with investors, what's getting in the way of people building houses, what's getting in the way of doing all these things. And then the other piece is incremental improvement. What's the next simple thing we can do to make it better? And so I want to get feedback from frontline staff. What's the next simple thing we can do to make it better? And some ideas will be good, and some ideas will be bad, but to try it. And last year, I saw one of the guys mowing the lawn at City Hall, and he was mowing the lawn in the rain. And I looked at that and go, I bet he has an idea of how he could do his job just a little bit better. We should ask him. And so, yeah, love to chat with all of you afterwards too, how you think we could do better. Some of Red Deer is well designed, some of it is not. And even where I live, just over there under the big cell tower, there's 15 fourplexes all in the same clump. This is a terrible design. If you could put that density a little bit on every crescent, it'd be just fine. But yet we put it all there together, and then the police sort of are in there, and you created little mini ghettos, and we can't do that. But if you put a fourplex on every crescent, the people who live there, they might be able to meet somebody else, and then their kids could get a summer job with someone who owns a business, and then you're off to the races. And so as we put these things in together, the whole city can flourish. And so that's part of what I'm running on, is just a vision that Red Deer should be the most strategically important city in Western Canada. And yeah, love to talk to you all afterwards. Thanks.
So when I was asked to come tonight, first of all, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in through us here. I was asked to come to speak tonight about the potential. And Penny, we didn't share notes, but we maybe should have. What do you see? That's the question I basically want to start off by kind of asking is, what do you see? And the interesting thing is, particularly on the real estate side, most properties are actually not a reflection of their true potential. It's only a reflection of the vision of the owner of that property or the manager of that property. The potential is so much more than what often exists. And as it was talked about earlier, it starts with a picture of seeing where it can go and what it can be. So the first question I'm going to ask is, what do you see? As you're driving around, as you're looking, as you're hearing the radio, as you're looking at newspaper headlines, what are you particularly seeing? And then the next question is, what are you looking for? Because we see what we're looking for. If you're looking for opportunity of properties, as Brian talked about, there were properties jumping out of all kinds of places that he could step into. As you sit and listen to Penny, she's no shortage of ideas, and yet she's living in the exact same location as everybody else. They talk to Bryce and see what Bryce is showing and sharing. You know, we're all in the same economy, but we're not all seeing the same thing because we're not all looking for the same thing. And potential, well, I guess I'll jump through some of these. So what do we see? And this doesn't really look like much, but what do you see? That was a possibility. That was a possibility. We're going to take a look at a few different. Bryce, when you walked through and showed this property, a lot of people saw this. What did Bryce see? That's what Bryce saw. Okay, that's what allowed him to pick it up, because when people walked through, they didn't see that. They saw this. He saw that. People driving down the street, everybody saw this. They didn't see that. So what are you looking for? Because what you're looking for is what you are going to see. And the interesting thing is, our potential is really going to be influenced by purpose. What do I mean by that? So what is the potential of a property? Well, it kind of depends on what do you want it to do. Are you wanting it to cash flow? Because the potential of that property is going to be different if you want it to cash flow than whether you're wanting to build equity on a long-term basis with it. You have to have the purpose. What is the purpose? Because the potential is going to be different. And the interesting thing is, we could probably pick 5 of you and look at one piece of property, and you're all going to see something different. And that's okay, but it's getting clear on the purpose that's important, because it's in the filter in which we're going to make our decisions and move forward, if we're clear of what we're doing, what our strategy is. And I just want to shift, and this is what I was really asked to kind of talk about is, but what about people? When we start thinking about, purpose, what about the people? What do we see when we're looking at people? So when you take a look, when you drive by, if you drove by and you saw your realtor standing there in a chicken costume, what potential do you see there? Like, what are you seeing? When you see the sign that says, "I'm not chicken to sell your house." Bryce, what were you feeling at the time when that was? Okay, did people see the Bryce of today when he was standing out there in the chicken costume? She did, but not everybody else. Or what do you see when you see a single mom raising a couple of kids who's running her budget through a jar system where she has this much for this part, this much for this part of her life, this much for this part of their life, and if this jar gets empty, there's nothing to refill until next month. You know what kind of potential did people see there? I don't know. I don't know if they saw Penny. If people back then would have saw you what you are today, did they see it back then? I'm not really sure. That picture cracks me up. I had to dig around and find that today online. When you look at this, what did we see? Well, I actually have to say that I did see something, because when I saw this, took a bit of a chance and hired the guy. He was kind of a goof, but we became fantastic partners as we worked in sales together, and we built a sales department because I could see some potential in him that I don't know who else could see it, but there was something in there. And now as I look at what he's done and where he's moving since then, Andrew, there's so much more in you to come out. So we've been talking tonight about what potential do we see in property, and the question I just want to ask is, what potential do you see in people? Because it's an infinite possibility in the people around us as well. Bryce is no longer the realtor that he was standing out in the costume there. And it probably took Bryce to see himself a little bit differently and see the potential in himself before he could make that change as well. So what do you see in yourself? Because our potential does not reflect our present results. Like our present results are, let me rephrase that. Our present results are not reflecting our true potential. Our present results right now are just reflecting our awareness of our potential. And as our awareness of our potential increases, so does our results. And we have to kind of build our way into it, as Brian was talking. Like the potential that he knew were projects this big. And as he stepped into that, he started realizing, wow, there's more in me. I can do this. Wow, there's more possibilities. I can do this. I can do this. And it's often easier to see that potential in others or outside of us than in ourselves. So what are we seeing in ourselves? And really to get the fulfillment of the potential, there's really three factors that we need to consider. And that is our mindset, our method, and our motivation. And I'm just going to run through these real quick. Our mindset, because our thoughts are going to drive our behaviors, and what we think about is what we're going to become and what we're going to experience. So our mindset is so important. Then our method, and our method is really the tools or how we're going to do what we're doing. If you have a great mindset, but you have a horrible method, if you got a horrible plan, you're not going to succeed. But the problem is, most times when people want to succeed, they focus on the method. They want to know, how am I going to do it? But if you don't partner that with the mindset, you're in trouble. And then the third one is the motivation. And the motivation comes inside us. Brian, you're very inspiring. The motivation. There was a drive in there that there was a motivation that if it doesn't come within, you're not going to move forward. And the three of those work together, kind of like a three-legged table. And if we don't kind of have each of those in synergy, and if one is lopsided, that table is not going to stand, and it's going to kind of fall over. So my question to you is, of those three areas, what area do we need to work on? Most of us automatically go to the method. But it's kind of interesting. We can look at certain people and go, man, how come just stuff seems to happen for them? How come they just seem to see the deals? It's like, man, Penny just, I don't know what she has, because she just is running in a different economy than maybe I feel like I am. No, she just sees it differently. There's a mindset that she has that sets her apart from that. So it is that mindset, that method, and then the motivation. What is that drive? What's that drive that kept driving Brian to keep doing and keep going and keep moving forward? Because if we just have the mindset and the method, we get stuck in ideation. You ever been stuck there? Some people stuck there? You got all the great ideas and you got all these great things, but it's like, if you don't have the motivation behind it, you're not actually going to take action and make it happen. And then we've got if we just have the mindset and the motivation, the mindset and the motivation, we're just going to get stuck in inspiration. Anybody know any of those people where they're so inspiring, but then you go, okay, what have you done? But they'll make you feel good. And then if you have the motivation and the method, you're going to have implementation, but you're going to stay stuck. Because probably the best way to move forward is just more hard work. And that's where the mindset comes in, because there is actually a way to help move forward without just working hard. And it's, again, thinking outside the box, which was kind of talked about quite a bit tonight. And the whole key to this is awareness. And when I say awareness, what I'm referencing is that we cannot change what we're not aware of. So when we become more aware of maybe the areas we need to strengthen in life, we can take some action in, or just being around people that will help move us into a different direction. Because I had no idea that I was sitting on positive cash flow in our basement. My son moved out almost a year ago, and we just had an empty basement. And it was completely out of my awareness that we had a cash flow machine sitting downstairs until I started getting around certain people. Several of them are in the room. And we started an Airbnb out of our basement. It was something that I wasn't aware of, but once we became aware of it, we were able to take that idea, take some action to it, and actually turn into a cash flow situation really quick, just because we got around people that gave us some different ideas. So, in just kind of closing in the evening, I just want to ask a couple of questions, and that is, what are you going to do to raise your awareness? And which of the areas do you need to shift that in? Is it in your mindset? Is it in your method? Is it in your motivation? What are you going to kind of change, and what beliefs and habits are no longer serving you that can be shifted and changed so that you can step forward into some of the dreams and goals that you have? And then which of those three legs do you need to put that effort into? Which one do you need to maybe back off a little bit so you can build and invest in one of the other areas so that you can build a stable table? Because often when we look at people and we talk about success, or they talk about, hey, they just have it going, really what it is it's preparation meets opportunity. And when we create that, when we take the time to prepare, when that opportunity comes up, we're ready to go. whether it be in our mindset, because it's really easy to plan to do something, but when you're sitting down at the bank and you're ready to sign that actual, okay, we're going to actually sign that mortgage, there's all kinds of things that we can be running through our mind at that time. So how are we preparing to make the shifts so that we can move forward? Because when you do the preparation, then when you start seeing these opportunities, and as those opportunities come forward, you are ready to take action and move forward. And it's exciting. Chad, that was really exciting. Like, to see what is the possibility. What's the possibility on a micro scale? What's the possibility in the smaller scale? And really, we are the only ones that are holding that back, because the potential is so much greater. So much greater than what we're experiencing now. And just keep that in mind, that right now the results you're experiencing are not your full potential. It's only your awareness of that potential. So great news is we can change our awareness. And as we change our awareness, we can absolutely change our potential and the results we experience. I look forward to meeting some of you afterwards, and hopefully that gives you something to think about. And just thanks for the opportunity to be here, Andrew.